Welcome to the Flip Your Script podcast. I'm Christy Peel. Today's guest is Jessica Janzen, a speaker, author, entrepreneur, and advocate whose life changed after losing her infant son, Lewiston, to spinal muscular atrophy. SMA is how it's referred to. In the midst of unimaginable grief, Jessica chose to share her story publicly, using social media not only as a tool for healing, but as a way to inspire hope, build community, and create meaningful change. Jessica, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Your story is one that deeply resonates and also so aligns with what this podcast is about, which is using social media for good. And your story specifically, you had this, the tragedy that parents can't even wrap their head around. And then you have this option to stay silent or speak. And you chose not just to speak, but to speak on a platform that amplifies your voice globally. At the very beginning, way back, take yourself back. Why did you believe so deeply that, you know what, this story deserves airtime?
So it actually didn't stem from the story deserving airtime. My life is very full. I'm like packed it very chaotically. There's like lots of moving parts. I'm just like, see, as I'm doing this, I'm like trying to attach a light because I'm like, wow, I'm really dark. And now my dog is joining us for the podcast. But what's so funny is I decided to use Instagram at the time to communicate with everybody. It was like the easiest, most central place to be like, I'm going to post an update here. I don't have time to send 75 different group texts. I don't have time like to code a website. I was like, maybe I'll start a blog. And we did. We started a website. But that lift felt even so overwhelming of like it's logging in and doing the back end. And so truly, we started to share our son's journey because it was the simplest spot to have everyone say, if you're looking for information about what's going on, go and check it out here. And that was how we updated people. And then it also was such a wonderful venue. If we had a need, that we were able to share that need and just ask for help. Because I think often when we're going through craziness and hard times, diagnosis, you're in the hospital, is that we are needing help, but you're not even sure who to ask. And so it was just like, hey, it's on this general platform. And then if people can help us, then we'll go get the help from there. And so it wasn't about giving it airtime. It was simply about communicating with people. And then it really snowballed. And part of what happened on social media, I've realized for myself, was I've used it as an outward way of navigating my grief, navigating and some of those feelings. Not everything gets processed on there, but it's been so helpful and healing for me to use that platform to process some of it because it connects you with other people who are like, oh man, you struggle with that thing too, or oh, this is so cool to see what you've done. And people want to feel seen and a part of something. And so that has been huge.
So let's talk about that connection, because one of the things that people complain about social media is that it's isolating and it's toxic and it is dark. And I am in no way saying that those spots aren't there and that it isn't a real mental health struggle for folks. But there are these beacons of light on social media, and that is the arena in which you play and where your content leans. So how do you make sure that you are feeding a good place of the social media world and not getting into this other part where there is no community, because you've developed a community while talking about a very traumatic topic?
I love this question and I love what this whole podcast is about because it's giving people a different perspective on what they're looking for. So I'm a keynote speaker, and one of the things that I talk about is like how the brain works and the neuroscience behind it, because a lot of us are struggling with dark thoughts, with depression, anxiety. We are focused on finding all the things that aren't working in our lives. And so it's really easy then when you're in a downward spiral, when you're struggling, to just find all the things that aren't working in the world and then to highlight that. But just as easily, you can go and look for the evidence of all the good. And part of this is having some good boundaries in place. But I've curated even what gets fed to me in terms of like what the algorithm feeds me is uplifting, motivating, incredible stories that people are able to share that then I'm like, what? Cool. Do you see what happened? Do you see the good? And so part of that is like, what are we consuming? What are you like going to on a regular basis? And my grandmother would say this to me. She'd always say, garbage in, garbage out. So if you're looking for the garbage and you're looking for the trash, you're going to get more of it. But if you're looking for the good and you're putting in the good, you're going to see more good. And Mr. Rogers said this. I used to watch that show growing up, but he said, look for the helpers. And that's essentially what we've done with social media is like we've looked for the helpers and then we've invited people into the space where people feel welcome. And it is a scary place when you put yourself out there and you basically are displaying your life for other people to very easily make judgments or quick assumptions. And it's been so interesting. But what I would say is I'm so fortunate because there's been very minimal negativity. And I don't use social media as a place to complain. I don't use it as a place to talk poorly about other people. I use it as a place to share some of my hard things so that other people feel seen. And I use it to uplift and to highlight and to give a voice and a platform for other people that want to do good and be good and have cool things happening. And so I would just say, if you're struggling in that area, look for the good and start to be the good. And the more of that I do, the more of it I get back in return.
Mic drop. That there it is. That's exactly the heart of what we talk about here. And a lot of folks think that it's impossible, but I say, and what I heard you say is that users have a responsibility. If you
Yes.
find yourself at a cocktail party and there's a bunch of really annoying, negative, dark people, you walk away. Okay, you get to do the same thing on social media. Like things that are positive, comment on things that are positive, and don't engage with stuff that takes your mind to a dark place.
This is so true. So this is so crazy. My daughter joined a new sport, cheerleading, and now there's like all these competitive teams, and I was all excited. And you're trying to choose like where do you go? And somebody that I knew came up to me and she's like, "Oh, girl, I can give you all the gossip and all the studios and what's going on." And I was so proud of myself because we are wired to be like, "Ooh, give me the dirt, give me the tea." Even now, this is something like, "Here, you want the tea." And I stopped myself because as much as I wanted to know it, I was like, I don't want to get caught up in that. And so I stood on my feet and I just proudly declared as like, listen, I'm here to cheer everybody on. And I'm like, I actually don't want the gossip. I just want girls to find community and to bring their best and be able to be competitive and have a blast. And then I was like, my hope is that I can cheer for every team. And the coolest part is my daughter and her best friend ended up choosing to go on separate cheer teams. And there's like, this studio does this and this place. And I was like, no, I'm like, we just want kids to go and have a great time. And best friends can be competitors and watch each other succeed. And this doesn't have to be about tearing people down. It can be about lifting people up. And so I think it's exactly like you said. It's like we have a responsibility. Will you join in the conversation and be part of that and add more fuel to a negative fire? Or will you be the fuel that brings bright light and helps people see the best in people? And that's what I want to be a part of. And so part of this has just been a very conscious decision about the circles that I surround myself with and personally, and then what I engage with. I mean, man, is it so fun to see crazy comments? It sure is. But it's like, how is this making the world a better place? And so part of that is like, what's my part in what transpires?
It's so well said. And there are so many entertaining people out there, like the comments in a variety of different, like,
Yes.
they're hilarious. And you can be hilarious and be funny and uplifting, and you can be hilarious and downtrodden and negative and hateful. And if someone made you laugh and they said something hateful, like, don't like it. Don't like it. You like move on, because otherwise you're going to get more of that. And what responsibility, as you said so well, put more light out there. Don't just be a taker, be a giver. All of us have bright lights in our life, and there's always something to be grateful for. You can engage and put that content out there as opposed to taking in the tea, so to speak. It's interesting. My son, as a teenager, was diagnosed with cancer. He's doing well now. But at the very beginning of the diagnosis, my doctor and I had an agreement, don't Google, right? So I stood by that for quite a bit of time, but I did. Hard to do. But I made her a deal, and my word, I'm not going back on that, especially I didn't have the emotional energy to fight with anyone at the very beginning of that diagnosis. But I did go into social and put the diagnosis Ewing sarcoma in a couple of different
Hmm.
social media platforms. And what I found were all of these support groups. And most of the support groups were for parents whose children had died of this, and a lot of negative, just a lot of negative, and it's unfair and it's unjust and all of that. And in no way is that not someone else's experience that is valuable. But I went back to my doctor and her team and I said, I feel awful, but can I get out of those rooms? Am I a terrible person for not wanting to be around that? And they were like, oh no, you got to do what you got to do. Don't go there. And so I sat with that during that diagnosis. And then I had complained about it a bit. And I thought, how can I be different? I can show up and share our story, not engage or in any way judge what they're doing. That's their journey. But also maybe there's another family out there looking for some beacon of hope. And gosh, if I was looking for it, don't I have a responsibility to put it out there for someone else? And so there is this kind of mindset shift of how you engage with the platforms and with your son's diagnosis and the topic that you talk about when you talk about Lewiston, and you've done so much good in raising money and raising awareness. But I suspect that there are places that are also dark and difficult and not productive for you.
Oh, I mean, girl, it's a daily battle up
Yeah.
in here. I mean, I've nicknamed my brain Larry. I talk a lot about like the neuroscience, as I mentioned, about all the thoughts. And I was somebody that really battled severe depression in high school. And a part of it was undiagnosed ADHD and dyslexia. I struggled to learn. I only got that diagnosis as late in my life as an adult, which I was like, gosh, that would have been so much easier to help me understand. I was lacking in dopamine and how my body needs dopamine. And there's these things now because on social media, especially for myself, it's so easy to get dopamine. And then it's like, how do you have a healthy relationship with the numbers? How do you not get obsessed about the data? When we post an event and it doesn't sell out, we posted an event and I don't think we were able to sell more than 6 tickets and we ended up having to cancel it. And at the time I had like 60,000 followers. So you have to be also really careful about how you utilize social media, how you consume it, how you interact with it, and what you make it mean. And part of this is doing a lot of work on my own mental health, my own brain health, about what am I doing outside of a platform for my physical health, my brain health, my emotional, and then my spiritual health, because those things help me. Because I think we often are looking for acceptance and belonging by if this happens, then it means that I'm this. And it's like, what are we making it mean? And I have to remember, like, dude, if you don't sell an event, it's not because you're not doing good in the world. It's not because you don't matter. There's so many other circumstances, but I very easily can quickly tell myself a story like, you're a failure, you're not cool, you're not good, people don't like your message, it doesn't matter. And I can go real dark. And so having good supports in place, good boundaries in place, and then like doing the work so that I do bring my best, so I'm not tuned into that for my acceptance and my belonging.
So important. And I think you said something else there that's really important, which is yes, you can have community on social media. And yes, that's a valuable place to have community. It doesn't take the place of actual human relationships. Two important, perhaps, but different things. And if all of your validation comes from your social media community,
Mhm.
then my goodness, that would be difficult when the video doesn't go viral, the numbers aren't there, people aren't popping in the DMs. So I'm so glad you made that distinction, because if all of the meaning comes from what's happening online, that would diminish the meaning of your actual human interaction.
Hmm. And here's what's crazy is I have met some of my best friends through social media. Like, and it's kind of wild. Now, I always know there's like a reason, a season, and a lifetime, with friendships, and there's those moments. But some of the people that I've been able to connect with, some of our volunteers, I mean, I could absolutely weep. I was at an event. This girl, she's so sweet. She was like, I have this partnership with Toyota, and I'm so grateful. I get to drive this awesome truck. I'm a truck girly. I grew up on a farm. I have like events, we're planning stuff. But because of social media, this girl recognized my truck. She was coming to an event that we were hosting, and she saw the parking people. She had never met me. She'd only followed me online, but because she knew about my life, she went and paid for my parking and made sure that I didn't get a ticket because you saw the ticketing guy coming into the lot. And the tickets were like $60 if you don't pay for parking. So I've been so grateful that like complete strangers are so good and so kind and just want to help. And when we host events, we always put a call out because we run this charity foundation in honor of our son who passed. And when we put a call out, often when people come and we do our like volunteer pump up meeting, there'll be 10 people that I'm like, I've never met you before. Like, who are you? And they're like, we've just seen your event and we wanted to get involved and we love what you're doing. And you're like, man, a stranger on the other side of the screen took time away from their family, from their business, from their life, from their job, from their home, and like just decided to serve and show up for 6 hours. And it's been incredible to see the generosity and to see how people want to be part of a community that does good. And I always say, I'm like, I've been able to see the best in people because of social media. And what a gift that is, that I would have maybe never had that. And I know it's so easy for us to be like, oh, look at this, all this negativity. But I was like, man, start looking for the good because it's out there. And if you don't see the good, then it is our responsibility to bring it, because I think it's like giving other people the evidence that it's happening. And even when we put out a call to action for silent auction items, sometimes it's really slow to start, but it's like as soon as people start to see one person giving and they're like, oh, I can do that too. Oh, I have this idea. And it's like, I think it's inspiring and planting seeds for other people for how they can show up in their worlds.
Such an important point. You talk a lot on your social media platforms about choosing joy. And you
Mm.
have, I don't know that you've said the joy word today, but it's certainly there all around the edges. How do you define joy? Because that is one of those words that gets tossed around and means different things to different people. So how do you define joy?
Joy isn't circumstantial. Joy isn't like because my life is this way or because this happened, it's this way. I think joy is a way of living. It's truly like it's a posture. And you said the words choose joy. And this is where I'm like, no, 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 it's not about choosing joy. Because, like, I mean, we go into the damn gift shop and people will send me signs of joy all the time. I actually got this beautiful sign from a random girl on Instagram that sent in and it says, this house is filled with radical joy. And I loved it because it's a statement. And it doesn't mean that this house is perfectly clean and everything is awesome and nothing's at a place. It's a statement declaring like this house is filled with radical joy. And rather than a statement of inspiring people to choose joy, which is like our natural default, because that's what we've heard, people just choose joy. I wrote a book called Bring the Joy. And what I deeply believe, it's like it's our responsibility to bring joy because a lot of circumstances don't have joy in them. They don't, it's not just like, well, choose joy. Well, it's like, okay, well, my kid's dying. There's no treatment, there's no cure, there's nothing possible. And like, there's nothing we can actually do to change that circumstance. So in that moment, how do you choose joy? And part of that, I think it's like, well, okay, yes, it is a choice, but there's this piece of it. It's like, this is our responsibility that if you want to access more joy, part of it is us bringing it. Part of us is saying, what can I change here? And I think we can't always change the circumstances, but we can change the posture of our heart. We can change the posture of our response. And that's where I think the difference is between happiness and joy. And so for me, people will come up to me like, man, like you're joyful. And I was like, yeah, because this is a posture. This is what a statement I've made for my life that I'll live in joy even if it's not going great. I'll live in joy even if I fail and I mess up. I'll live in joy even if my bank account isn't the amount that I want. Doesn't mean that I can't work to fix those things, but this is how we're showing up. And when you start to have it being something that can be the posture of just how you show up and who you are, and I think the reason why we don't access it is because we're waiting for circumstances to change and we're waiting for everything to be in alignment. And we forget that it's our responsibility, that we have control over a lot. And some of those things are hard to handle. But if it's in our control, then we have to do better. And that's a hard thing to take because people don't want to do the work.
And yet, when they hear someone like you talk about it, who has been through stuff, not little stuff, but like real hard stuff, talking about, oh no, you can bring the joy. That changes what people think is even possible, which is why I love it when folks who have gone through really difficult things make the conscious choice to share and to
Mm.
help other people get through it, because most people won't have a sick child. Most people won't have to plan their child's funeral, but they will have really hard things. They will have difficult chapters and difficult days and difficult seasons. So if someone is listening right now and they're in one of these seasons, what advice do you have for them?
These are all the things that I think we know we need to do, but we forget to do because we get caught up in our own thoughts and limiting beliefs. I think it's going back to the very basics of things is like taking care of yourself. The reason why I can show up well and in the midst of chaos and what I would call a shitstorm, in the midst of all of those things, what is in my control? And so part of that is what I consume. So how am I taking care of my mind? What am I doing so that I'm set up for success? There's this piece of like, am I moving my body? Majority of listeners, my guests on your podcast will be able to move their body and they're choosing not to. And the work that we do with our foundation is helping those who basically do not have the gift of movement in the way that most of us do. They're in wheelchairs, they're not able to utilize their legs. Some of them, they get to lunchtime and they're too weak to lift their own fork to their mouth. And so I think about this gift of movement. What are we doing? And that we're wired to move. And so make sure you're moving your body, taking care of it, exercising it. Those are all the things to like feed your brain the fuel it needs to keep going on. I take good care of your health. Like, what are you consuming into your body? When you start to understand that your brain health actually significantly affects everything else, how you think, the clarity, how you access dopamine, how you show up, not having brain fog, you start to eat differently. And trust me, I'm all for like some summer fun. I'm all for go and get a burger and fries. But when I start to look at like, man, is this going to fuel me and help me show up as my best? You start to consume food differently. And I really want to make sure that I fuel myself well so I have the best fuel in my tank to give it all I got. And then there's this piece about sleeping. And so besides the practical things of like eat better, sleep, exercise, which we all know but sometimes struggle to do, I would say find and figure out your blueprint. What are the things that make you your very best? And then I would say do the work internally with a therapist, with journaling, have a gratitude practice. Because what's happening is your brain is looking for the evidence of what's happening in our life. And it's our responsibility to feed it good evidence so that we keep going, so that we're motivated to show up. And I found so much freedom and so much abundance in this ability to be in a season in my life where I'm like, I've got to fuel my brain good evidence that what I'm doing is working and it matters, because that's where the joy is. And so I'm a little bit of a extra personality, a little spicy. That's not for everybody. So I'm not saying you have to be the loudest or the craziest or the most chaotic in the room and have a million dance parties, but figure out what makes you authentically you. And then once you've had that discovery, just be that full version of yourself. Because I think where we waste a lot of our energy is being so consumed with other people think of us, or we've told ourselves these thoughts and these limiting stories, and that's what holds us back. That's where we play small. That's where we dim our light. And I've learned to stop dimming my light and to just like fully show up. And in those moments, that's where we've seen the biggest change and shift.
And it is so true that social media is a place where people often go to compare themselves to others. And what you said that I love that is so, so important. And if you take one thing away from this whole conversation, you have to figure out you, right? And what works for the next person and what works for Jessica, what works for me, what works for that other person that you saw on social media or that book you read. That's what works for them. Everyone brings their own experiences and insights and wiring and all of those things but do the work of figuring out what makes you show up as your best self. And if that's taking a break from social media for a bit, take a break. If that's going through and getting rid of all of your high school classmates because you just can't, that's fine. But figure out what works for you and pay attention. I think that's the other thing that you said is like be intentional. Be really intentional about how the things that you are consuming mentally, physically, spiritual, emotionally, how they impact what you're saying, how you're feeling, how you can show up for other people. All those things work together. So thank you, Jessica, for the work that you're doing on social media, showing up your authentic self, not dimming your light, and bringing the joy.
You're so welcome. This is my biggest thing is like, I thank you for distilling it down. I just hope that people truly take time to figure themselves out and to stop fighting maybe where there's been friction. And for me, I did this full psych ed assessment, which maybe isn't possible for everybody, but it was so eye-opening for me where I was like, oh man, I'm not a failure. I learned different. Oh man, like this isn't my area that like I thrive in. And so when you are able to step into your power of like my process can be a little bit different, the way I get to a solution can look different, there's so much freedom in that. And I think we the way that we process grief or handle grief or death, or the way that we show up, even corporately when I speak, it's so incredible because I see women who want to step into these roles, but they're afraid that they're too much because they've been told a story and there's a way to do it. And so when we blaze a new trail, it's scary. And it maybe takes a little bit longer and there's a little bit more resistance because we're learning a new way. And I left corporate because I was being told, dim your light, you're too much, don't be blah, 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 blah. And I've had to rewire my brain and be like, dude, we need you exactly as you are. And it's okay that you don't fit in for that company, but there's people that need a little bit more joy, a little bit more hope. So be intentional with the fuel you put in because that will be what your output creates. And I think we all want to have impact and meaning and live on purpose. And you can do that when you're not dampening your light and you're finding those little pockets of joy. Last but not least, I always say have a dance party. And I say have a dance party, and what I mean is like find the thing that helps you feel it in your soul. For me, that is great music and a good dance party. But find your version of a dance party. It could be connection, it could be intentional conversation, it could be acts of service. But if you're lacking in joy, find the thing that helps you feel alive, and then make sure that you protect it and schedule it in, because we're living in a world that is going at an ultra pace that we've never had before. We have more demands than ever. There's more expectations than ever. And it's so easily to just go through the motions of living and like forget that like it's our responsibility to actually live in that and not just coast on through.
Well said. Well, find Jessica's book, follow her socials, bring her to a stage near you so you can hear more.
Oh.
Thank you, Jessica, for sharing your story, for showing us how social media can be a force for connection, healing, and positive change. And I love the bring the joy mantra because it can be the first seed in a mindset shift that is transformational. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you.